Welcome back. If I recall correctly, we were just getting to the good part. Takano-san, having realized she'd scared Shion and I enough at this point, smiled soothingly. Then she turned on her heel, raised the lantern, and began to walk again. If Takano-san left us here, we'd get even further away from the light. Shion and I, no matter how scared we were forced to follow Takano-san along her field trip through the ritual storehouse. I suppose we've seen a bit of everything. See? This place is interesting, isn't it? She says, raising the lantern high in the center of the storehouse. The dim lighting didn't change, but for some reason, it felt like I was able to see all of those horrible tools at once. Kei-chan, look up! Shion stammered while grabbing the nape of my neck. I couldn't tell because it was so dark, but there were a lot more tools hanging from the ceiling as well. They all looked like they were made of iron bars, but then I figured it out. Cages. Ooh, kinky. For cages, they were very small. Cramped cages just for one, like a casket. If you got locked up in there, no, you wouldn't get locked up inside it. It was another tool meant for restraining people, where the iron bars would squeeze you tightly. So many, big and large, things of all shapes were hanging down. Takano-san's mention of execution by grilling crosses my mind. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry if you can hear all the birds. They're like literally 2 meters to my right, and they won't shut up. We weren't just surrounded on all sides by these terrifying instruments. Try one more time. Things crowding the ceiling were even hanging over our heads. There are many of these sorts of bird cages amongst European torture devices. I'm surprised to see them in Japan as well. Are they talking about Iron Maidens? Kei-chan, can't be an Iron Maiden. Is there something in there? A person? A mummy? Where? Shion desperately pointed to one of the many human-sized bird cages hanging from the ceiling, but I couldn't tell which one she meant. I went to I think it's actually called like the Torture Museum in Amsterdam, which was certainly a thing. They have all of the weird torture instruments from way back in the past in there. Being that dark, there wasn't any way you could tell if something was there in the first place. I don't see anything. You sure you're not seeing things? Indeed. Shion didn't seem convinced, but without a means to confirm for ourselves, we couldn't do much but wonder. Mayabara-kun, after seeing this, have you come to believe in all of it? The countless terrible rituals passed down in Hinamizawa. It's got nothing to do with believing in them. Now that I've been shown the real thing like this, there's no possible way to deny it. Even the nations of Europe, with all their beautiful landscapes and legends, were like a maelstrom during the terrible witch hunts in the Dark Ages. It's well known that the era gave birth to countless gruesome forms of torture and execution. Japan was the same way. Didn't it have its own era of hellscape, like torturous feasts because of religious suppression and things of that nature? Hinamizawa itself had such a period. It had that much history behind it. Even in Europe, land of the witch hunts, that was all far in the past, no more than a series of historical events, and in this age, nothing that abnormal would ever happen. That must apply to Hinamizawa as well. Just as Europe had its Dark Age, Hinamizawa had one too. That's how this should be taken. Even if these things all really happened in Hinamizawa, they're all long past. They don't have anything to do with the people living in Hinamizawa right now. Mayabara-kun, you really do like this village. It didn't sound like she was making fun of me. Takano-san gave me a light smile. Takano-san, you're researching whether those customs survived into the present. You are, right? Shion suggested something that made my heart leap into my throat. Are you telling me that all these horrible things are still going on even today? What I'm about to tell you is a secret, alright? I told you, Shion-chan, because you're an understanding person, but the other villagers don't want to hear it. If things go awry, then I could be ganged up on and punished. That's a weird way of saying it, but okay. Shion flashed a devilish smile, as if reveling in the immorality of it. Indeed. Mayabara-kun, you keep it a secret too, okay? If this gets out, I could suffer Oyashiro-sama's curse, or be made into a sacrifice. If it's the curse, then I wonder what kind of death it'll be this year. If it's the sacrifice, then will I be thrown into the Onigafuchi swamp while still alive? It is tonight, you know. The night of Yashiro-sama's curse, ha ha ha, Takano-san said, bringing her face right up close to ours. As if to say that if she had the choice, she'd rather suffer the curse. I don't know why that sentence seems so strange to me, but it does. That was what she seemed to be implying. Takano-san took a fairly worn notebook out of her paper bag, then began to flip through its pages. There were all sorts of references and newspaper clippings attached to them, and it had all manner of things written inside. The letters were very small and bunched together, so I couldn't tell at a glance what it was about. What I'd really like to do is search through the National Library for newspapers from the era, but here it is. A photocopy of a page from some book was slid into the notebook, and it too was written in small, tight lettering. Like the other pages, I couldn't tell what it was just by glancing at it. This is a story that actually happened. It was around the end of the Meiji era. They discovered an unknown, mangled corpse, the victim of a murder, in Onigafuchi village. An old newspaper clipping attached to the page spoke of something that was no mere rumour or fairy tale. We don't have most police documents from the time anymore, so it's all based on oral traditions and memories. See? It's not very clear, but it looks like a cutout of a newspaper from the Meiji era. Never before has there been a corpse treated with such cruelty and inhumanity. Could it be the work of a demon? Being a copy of a copy, it was very hard to make out, but it was more than enough to make me feel strangely tense. Near the end of the Meiji era, in old Onigafuchi village, a mangled corpse was discovered. The identity of the corpse was unknown. It wasn't even in a state where it could be identified in the first place. It was missing a head, and each limb was separated from the body. Skin had been peeled off the entire body, and there were markings that implied terrible torture in every place imaginable. Not only that, but the belly had been cut open by a sharp knife, with the entrails completely dragged out. The police immediately began an investigation, but since they couldn't even determine the identity of the victim, much less the criminal, finding answers was extremely difficult. Do you understand what it must have been like? I couldn't imagine such a strange sight, even if I tried. This was the first time I was ever thankful for my lack of imagination. The victim was skinned while still alive, underwent all kinds of torture, and was killed brutally. The author here also thinks that even after death, the remains were divided and dissected even further, the epitome of inhumanity. I'm of the opinion that the entire process was performed while the person was still alive, though. What do you think, Mayabara-kun? She spoke in a way intended to make me imagine even more vicious things. As my brain was already far over capacity, however, there was no way I could imagine anything more brutal. Then, when I broke my gaze from Takano-san's, those strangely shaped weird tools were all around us. I wonder if you could faithfully reproduce the mutilated corpse discovered at the end of the Meiji era with the tools found in this place. I want to deny it. I don't want to admit that something so terrible could have happened at all. Even so, they were so strange, so terrifying, these tools, and as if they had seen through my attempt to escape from them, they did nothing but ridicule me silently. So, that creepy incident, what was it in the end? The author says that, regarding Onigafuchi Village dreadful customs, they've survived into recent post-Meiji days, and that perhaps they lasted until around the beginning of the Showa period. This corpse, which, at a glance, had been brutally killed after a period of torture. In actuality, however, it was the pitiful sacrificial remains of the man-eater's terrifying feast. The corpse was just leftovers. It was so fantastic, so strange, that it didn't feel real. Was this an extension of the legends too? It happened in the Meiji era though, which is just too recent to be called a legend. Also, there's a newspaper clipping right here suggesting it. Okay, but even if it really happened, it was a long time ago, right? I mean, the Meiji era ended 100 years ago. That's all. Only 100 years ago. Besides, it kept happening even after the beginning of the Showa period. Like with the uproar around the post-war canned flesh incident. Oh, I apologize. That story was taboo, wasn't it? Takano-san immediately stopped talking, as if worried about Shion. Shion briefly looked somewhat angry, but that expression soon disappeared. Huh? Takano-san, what did you just say? Canned flesh? Just then, there was a huge creaking noise. Everyone whipped around to look. It was Tomitake-san who had opened the door slightly. He opened it slightly, but it was a huge creaking sound. Indeed. Ha 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 ha. Did I startle you? Oh, Jiro-san, could you not resist seeing inside? This is a splendid treasure trove of torture devices. I'll pass on that. I'm bad with this sort of thing by nature. Takano-san held her stomach and had to muffle her laughter, as if she wanted to make a comment about his masculinity. Wait, what? Huh? So, the man doesn't want to look at torture devices and suddenly he has no masculinity? Okay, if you say so. In any case, the dance and ceremony are over and everyone's going down to the stream. The festival will be over within minutes. Oh, that's no good. Maebara-kun is just such a good listener that I couldn't help telling stories. I'd really rather you not mention me in a place like this. What? Jiro-san, could you wait out front? I want to take a few pictures. There are actually a lot of tools I'd like to bring home, but we obviously can't do that. Takano-san took camera out of her paper bag and began to snap photographs. She took camera. She looked like she was having fun, like she was on a scavenger hunt. Keiichi-kun, are you leaving too? I've seen enough. Shion, you're good too, right? Let's get out of here. I want some fresh air. I agree. Let's leave. I did feel a bit of hesitation at leaving Takano-san by herself in this darkness. When I thought about it though, I realized that whatever kinds of evil spirits and ghosts lurked in the darkness, none of them could hold a candle to how scary she was. Even if a phantasm were to appear, she'd be overjoyed and flash her camera at it. Fatal frame. It seemed like Shion shared my somewhat rude mental images. We exchanged glances and smiled painfully. We left Takano-san there, bathed in her strobe of camera flashes, and decided to go leave the ritual storehouse. Go leave. We decided to go leave. Yes. Everyone at the festival seemed to have gone to the stream, so their voices were very distant. The voices of the bugs, on the other hand, were clear, lending an empty feeling of isolation to the place. How was it? Interesting? Tomitake-san gave us a somewhat mischievous grin. He should have been able to tell by looking at how pale our faces were. I should have kept watch outside with you, Tomitake-san. Ah ha 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 ha. Tomitake-san laughed so delightfully that it wiped away our dark feelings. How did you fare, Shion-chan? Were you scared? I was prepared for it, so I wasn't too afraid, but seeing the real thing was powerful. Shion spoke like she wasn't scared at all. She really had been quite afraid, but seeing as how I was in a way worse state than her, I didn't have much room to talk. As Tomitake-san grinned candidly, my mind, exhausted and locked up by nervousness, began to calm itself. Was Takano-san an adult about this little expedition? I understand what they're trying to say there, but that's still a weird way of saying it. You know how she seems like a child sometimes. I was worried she'd be way too excited. Both Shion and I laughed and left that as our answer. Indeed. Hopefully she was only looking at things. I'm worried she'll sneak something out of there or mess with a ritual implement too much and break it or something. Right, that's quite possible. She is alone in there right now. She might pilfer something small and easily concealed, hiding it in her pocket. Ah ha 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 ha. Yeah, I can see that. Shion said what I was thinking. You're sure she didn't break anything? I could clearly hear some noises like someone jumping up and down. I was getting pretty nervous. I'm sorry. I ran out of film. Jiro-san, if you have any more, could I use some? Takano-san suddenly appeared while we were talking about her, taking everyone by surprise. Tomitake-san smoothly grinned and responded as if nothing had happened. He's pretty mature. What? Ah ha 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 ha. He laughs a lot, doesn't he? I'm all out of spare film. Sorry about that. Jeez. You won't win any Pulitzer Prizes by not stocking enough film for any occasion, you know? I suppose that's it then. Tomitake-san scratched his head apologetically. Without film, we are done here. Takano-san seemed to have given up because of that too. We checked carefully to make sure we hadn't left anything inside, then closed the door and turned the heavy padlock we'd left beside it. Takano-san, you didn't sneak anything out, right? How rude. I'm trying not to be that childish. Kerclack. Tomitake set the padlock back to the way it was before. From a cursory glance, it didn't look like thieves had snuck in at all. Okay, let's get over to the stream ourselves. If we don't at least set some cotton afloat, there won't be any point in coming to the festival. Tomitake-san spoke brightly, urging us all on. Setting cotton afloat down the stream. I shake my head a few times, driving away my dismal thoughts as to the double meaning. Takano-san, looking a little let down, kept turning back to glance at the ritual storehouse. Let's just leave it at that, alright? You saw enough to sate your curiosity, didn't you? Oh, not at all. Everything I found only renewed my interests. All those stories and legends suddenly hold water. After today, I'm going to have to change the way I look at all of this. Wow, she's truly indomitable. Indeed. Her curiosity really is something else. Still interested in all this through and through. We descended the stone stairs and all the people crowding the stream came into view. Near the bottom of the stairs, we could clearly see people receiving cotton that had been cut out for them, then wishing upon the cotton and setting it afloat down the stream. The festival was already over. Damn, I missed my chance to photograph the best part of Watanagashi. Oh, but it's not too late. I'm going to go and set some afloat. Perhaps you could take pictures of me. Takano-san, with an impish expression, brought her head to Tomitake-san's shoulder. Despite his age, he looked embarrassed. I felt an honest respect for Tomitake-san, man to man, for dating such a handful of a woman. What? Goodbye then. Mayabara-kun? Shion-chan? We're going down to the stream. Would you like to come with us? No, I couldn't get in your way. Please take your time. Shion waved her hand to them with an expression just as impish as Takano-san's. Tomitake-san, on his part, seemed to want us to come, but whatever. Shion gave a big stretch and sat down on the stone steps. Ehehe. I'm pretty worn out. Same here. I'm exhausted too. Kei-chan, this is your first Watanagashi, isn't it? You go on, don't mind me. I'm tired, so I'd like to stay away from the crowd. Yeah, if we were to go now, we'd barely slip into the end of the cotton drifting ceremony. My sister and your other friends might be looking for you too. Go on. Oh, yeah, right. They've been by themselves ever since we got separated. I'd feel bad if they were looking for me. Then Shion suddenly got a playful look on her face, then put her index finger to her lips, as if telling me to keep this a secret. My sister is the type that gets really jealous. If she knew I was hogging you this whole time, she'd never let me hear the end of it. So keep tonight a secret, okay? Keep tonight a secret. Don't say things that are so embarrassing. Not only because of that either. Considering what we were doing tonight, we really need to keep it a secret. Oyashiro-sama's curse might happen tonight, and we four would be the prime candidates. The loosening threads of tension became taut again. Shion, however, burst out laughing. All right, I'm going to get out of here before I run into my sister. I really am tired, so I don't have the endurance to put up with her anyway. I can't tell if you get along with her or not. We get along. Though as she said that, her vague expression explained that there are a lot of oddities in a relationship between twins. I'm an only child, so I don't really get it. Make sure you get along with her, okay? Right. Thank you kindly for your meddling. You tell him, Shion. Okay, I'm gonna go. You should hurry up if you want to make it, Kei-chan. Watanagashi really is about to end. Shion stood up and brushed the dust off her backside. After watching her do so, indeed, I returned my eyes to the final ceremony of the Watanagashi festival below me. Seriously though, what was that sound anyway? It was kind of unpleasant and creepy. Huh? What sound? The sound. You know, the banging noise. It was really loud, wasn't it? I was giving her a blank expression, so Shion stared hard at me. I stared hard at her too. No, you. Sorry, Shion. Could you give me the short version? What was making noise? Wait, Kei-chan? It didn't bother you? When all's said and done, it was like we were speaking two different languages. Shion, explain it to me, without jokes, from the beginning, will you? What's this about a noise? Kei-chan, you quit joking around too. Really, honestly, it didn't bother you? Neither of us was giving any ground, and both of us were staring at the other in disbelief. We were answering questions with more questions, and with no sign of an actual conversation in sight. Baffled, I held in the urge to shout at her and asked politely one more time. I'm going to ask one more time, okay? I'll ask the questions. Shion nodded silently. Okay, here goes. You said there was a sound. What are you talking about? The banging sound. It was like a kid was jumping up and down on floorboards somewhere far away. It really didn't bother you? There was nothing to be bothered by. When did you hear this? I never heard anything. Wait, Kei-chan, are you serious? Shion, as if she didn't understand my plain and simple answer, pressed me further, her expression serious. I have no clue what she's talking about, but if it has Shion acting so like this, whatever it was, it gave me the creeps and sent a chill down my spine. It was while we were looking around the inside of the ritual storehouse with Takano-san. About the time she started her stories, I think it was. Little by little, louder and louder, off and on. She heard a banging sound, like a child jumping on distant floorboards. That can't be true. Don't start trying to scare me after all that. I didn't hear anything at all. In fact, it was so utterly silent in there that my own heartbeat was almost deafening. Please don't try to scare me either, Kei-chan. It was like something was making noise in time with Takano-san's scary stories, and I was totally creeped out the whole time. The chill rose from my spine to the back of my head. My blood turned cold as it crawled up my body. When it reached my head, my mind froze over. You and Takano-san weren't paying any attention to it at all, so I pretended not to hear it either, but you heard it, right? It happened a bunch of times, and it was really loud. Shion's eyes were begging me to tell her I heard it. I had no doubt, however, that my own eyes suggested something entirely different. You've got to be kidding look. In that storehouse, we were surrounded by brutal ritual tools that looked like they were from another planet, listening to terrifying old stories. The whole time, Shion had been hearing a sound that we couldn't hear by herself. Should that make Shion, who heard it, tremble, or should it make me, who didn't hear it, tremble? I didn't know the answer to that at the time. For now, Shion seemed to have made that decision before I did. Ha 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 ha. What are you laughing about? I really got you, Kei-chan. I was fibbing the whole time. What? Nani? Shion laughed, saying how easily scared I was, and clapped me on the back. Her smile seemed somehow artificial and actually made me feel worse. Then, after leaving me with 2 or 3 generic diplomatic goodbye phrases, she left, almost like she was running away. All I could do was look after her, my mouth agape. At the end of the day, I didn't have a clue what was going on. Shion laughed it off and said she had been lying, but she couldn't possibly have been lying. Of course not. And now that I think back, Tomitake-san said the same thing, didn't he? Dun, dun, dun. I could clearly hear some noises, like someone jumping up and down. I was getting pretty nervous. Tomitake-san, the most neutral party present at the time, had said he'd heard something. Then, that noise. It was real. The banging sounds. Sounds as though a child was jumping up and down on some kind of floorboards far away. Oyashiro-sama's curse, which happens every year, might happen again tonight. The most plausible victim candidates were Takano-san, Tomitake-san, Shion, and me. The bustling of the people sounded further away than I would have liked, and the sounds of the insects sounded too close for comfort. All right, we're going to end this episode right here. This is the perfect place to end it. So finally, we're definitely getting into the good part of the story. We're getting hints at who might get Onikakushi'd this year, etc., etc. Anyway, come back next week when I'm going to find out more. We're at the good part. I'm actually excited to see what's coming now. Anyway, I'll see you guys then. See ya.